in there. So our primary goal for this session is to offer insights from different perspectives within education, including the teacher, administrator, learning scientists, and industry perspectives in order to motivate, inspire, and inform teachers about the issues that matter most, particularly around generative AI, right? We've had this AI conversation going through all of our sessions and the evolving classroom. So we hope to leave you here today with some ideas, some maybe strategies that will help us, meet these challenges and kind of give us a new opportunity for the school year ahead of us, because that's what we need as teachers and educators. We need other perspectives. And so I'm really excited to introduce our panelists here today that are going to give us some great perspective from their individual unique circumstances. And we're going to be able to take that information and apply it and see, how can it help us as we go forward into this school year. So I'm going to start us off with Sadia. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Sadia Aziz. I am a dean at Denver Schools of Science and Technology here in Denver, and I primarily work with high school students.
Deana?
Hello, everybody. My name is Deana Forbes. I am a high school social studies teacher in Northern Virginia, Prince William County Schools, and I also am the CEO of Social Studies Scholar. I really care a lot about sharing Black stories and helping teachers incorporate Black history into whatever social studies topic that they teach. And also, if you hear a little coos and oohs in the background, it's because I got a newborn and he's chilling with mama right now. He's joining the session with us.
Awesome. Tatum.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tatum Moser. I was really excited to see somebody on the chat from Switzerland. Woo, I'm in Zurich. I am a co-founder at Mindly Games. My passion is making learning really fun for kids. I'm also part-time as a classroom teacher, still substituting at one of the international schools. But yeah, I work primarily both ed tech K-5 and also classroom teaching K-5.
Awesome. And Gabriela.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking Quizlet for this amazing opportunity and to be representing South America in this panel. My name is Gabriela Néspoli. I am a Brazilian learning experience designer. I am passionate about helping adults and youth to reach their highest potential in life. And I recently founded my learning design studio, Florence Design. Thanks for joining us. I'm eager to discuss the new look of learning with you all.
Awesome. So let's get started. So again, these questions were pulled directly from our attendees, and maybe you're in here right now and you're going to hear one of your questions. So first question from Joseph Y from Taiwan. How do we determine if a technology is helpful or harmful to student health or their learning? Are there some guiding principles we can use to evaluate if we should incorporate new tech into our teaching as they emerge? Tatum, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, first, definitely be on the lookout for efficacy research. And if it exists for whatever you're looking to incorporate, we're actually in the process of doing that for our company right now. So if anybody's interested, give me a shout out later. But also there's like some really great tools out there that I've relied on for many, many years, like Common Sense Media, because it spoke specifically to, making sure that it's attending to students' health and wellness. They have a really amazing rubric that they use to evaluate different educational offerings that are out there that I still refer to all the time when we're designing new games, so that we kind of give ourselves a good guideline to go by. And yeah, other teachers, your curriculum directors and your technology teacher on assignment, they're always great people to turn to that have probably vetted so many different resources. So if you're thinking about one, reach out for help, ask for advice and reviews if they've used something previously.
Excellent. I agree. Gabriela, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Tatum. I love asking for other educators for their opinions. And I also believe it's useful to consider a few principles, such as if the technology actually helps teachers, if it matches a real diagnosed demand. So improving learning management, improving learning, improving engagement, if it operates within the school's infrastructure, if it is compatible with the internet bandwidth, the availability of laptops, mobiles, right? and also if it's ethically and culturally relevant, if it speaks to the school's context. Both content and methods of the technology should dialogue with what matters to the school community and to how the school community likes to see learning, right? So I understand that these elements can seem very basic, but I've seen so many examples of technologies that were adopted without considering the actual context of the school and what matters to educators, to students, to parents within this space. So I always like to start with that, with defending and, putting the place of the diagnostic and of listening to folks in the community before we choose which technology to adopt largely. And I also feel like nowadays it is important to also, as they don't notice, consider technologies that were developed based on learner studies and based on the learning sciences. So that means that we are actually working with tools that will help us to foster learning and to actually accelerate what we are doing, right? We're not just testing with stuff, but we are standing on the shoulders of giants, right? As one of my teachers would say.
Excellent, thank you. Next question from Joni L from California. With the onset of AI technology being used inappropriately by students, we all know what that's like, what can educators do to recognize it? How can we utilize it for good in classrooms? This is the big question, right? Big question. Deana, what are your thoughts?
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Joni from California, for asking this question. I love both of these questions. First of all, I just want to express how with this new onset of technology, especially AI, when, if you're on Instagram like I am as a teacher, you see, AI and the changes and everything. And let's be real, it could be kind of scary. Like for me, I'm over here like, oh Lord, something else for me to learn, right? And I feel like sometimes that's a big challenge for educators. We feel like it's, number one, something else for us to learn, but also students are so advanced in this age of technology that they get stuff just like that and they know how to use it, right? Including AI, including using it in the classroom. And obviously we know that can come with, misusing it too. So I think the first step is for us to learn what we can about it, right? And also use our teacher's spidey senses. That's what I call them. Just like we will be able to recognize if a student is turning in a paper and you're like, no, this is not you. You did not write this, or I can put this in the Google search and see, but AI is kind of a different beast almost, because I just saw this video on Instagram of, they were talking about how pictures of children and stuff can be used and translated to them as adults. And so it's some tricky technology. But yes, I definitely think we have to use our teacher spidey senses. And also get to the point where we're comfortable with what AI looks like in the classroom, right? For us, my first kind of baby step with AI in the classroom actually was with Quizlet, using the beta program to help me create flashcards for my students, and I said, okay, well, this is something that I learned. Let me teach them how to do this, right? But also, I think another big piece is having relationships with your kids where you're like, all right, y'all, listen, I know this is some fun technology. I know this is new, and we can all be very tempted to use this in the wrong ways. I need to be able to trust you as students that we're going to practice, having ethics and trust in our classroom. And so I think this is so new that those are kind of some of the things that come to my mind with thinking, okay, how can I not only learn this as the teacher, but then also use my skills of building rapport and relationships with my students to let them know, hey, I'm aware, you're aware, AI is here to stay. And we have to all kind of work together to use it responsibly. So hopefully that makes sense.
Definitely. Sadia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what was said so far. I also think that it's a great opportunity that we have to teach some more critical thinking skills to our students. So I know of at least one college professor at Colorado State University that is allowing his students to use AI in their essays as long as they cite it as AI and then critique the response. And I think like that's kind of where we're going. AI is here. It is out there on the internet. We can't ban it from our classrooms or schools, but allowing students opportunities to use it and to apply their own thinking to whatever the AI spits out is one way we can do that and put the cognitive load back on them. I also think, using our spidey senses is very important. And one of the ways that we can do that is by really knowing our students and their ability levels well. And that also includes providing like supervised times in class where they're independently writing or answering questions where maybe they're not on the computer at all, or if they're in a locked browser and just like logistically, these are the things I'm thinking about, if they don't have access to it and I know they didn't on this assignment, then I know, okay, like this is what the ability level of this student is as compared to putting it in an AI machine or whatever it's called. I also think that the other thing I was thinking about is we are seeing on social media and in the art world, a lot of AI being used to generate things. And this is another opportunity to teach our students how to question information that they're receiving and just to be critical thinkers in all parts of their life.
Yes, definitely. Well said. Tatum, what are your thoughts?
Like 100 times yes to everything that Deana and Sadia already said. And I just really think that it really is at this point about education, and really teaching kids and learning alongside kids how to utilize AI and just being open and honest about that. Like we're all still learning too. And I think it's okay if we let kids know that. One of the big things that I've been reflecting on is there's this quote that comes out of Project Zero by David Perkins, and he just asked like, what's worth learning, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that I've been up against in my own use of generative AI is like, how often is the convenience and allure of AI potentially short-circuiting my opportunity to learn something I really need to learn? Because it's just making the process go so much faster. So teaching kids to just be self-reflective about that, like this is cool, it's making it easier, but am I potentially sacrificing my own learning and knowledge that I need in the future with the way that I'm using this? And if the answer is yes, I'm short-circuiting it here, how can you still use it as a tool, but so that you still get the learning that you need, that the knowledge that you need to hold on to long-term? So.
Definitely. Gabriela?
Yeah, +1 to everybody. And I think it is important for us to consider that the generative AI, most of that we see out there, they were not developed for educational purposes. And the field is now researching its way there, right? So I'm seeing so many grants that are funding these interesting projects that aim at using AI to foster more equitable, safe, and a better experience, a better learning experience for each and every student. But while that is not the case for most of the generative AI we see out there, what do we do, right? So this is such an important question. And I agree with all the previous panelists. I believe that when it comes to the emergence of AI, it brings us this opportunity of rethinking what is the value of authentic creation? What is the value of the human creation and experience, the human experience? And considering how do we, what criteria do we use to analyze our students' learning? What criteria is embedded in our learning assessments? I believe that there's an opportunity for us to try and value what makes students human, what makes their creations truly authentic. And just some ideas of like specific practice that could be done within the classroom. I agree with the other panelists. I believe there's room for us to bring the students on board and discuss AI, have them read, depending on their age, right? Have them read about it, have them engage on a debate about it, potentially use it and criticize it, potentially create regulations with them to what and what we cannot use. So as Sadia was saying, maybe there's an opportunity for us to experiment with having them using and then explaining why they used it in the first place. We don't know, let's learn together, right? And also I believe that there's room for us to try and embed in our assessments little personal notes. Instead of just asking for them to state content knowledge, why don't we ask for them to relate content knowledge with personal experience? So explain to me why learning certain matters was important to you. Give me an example of your daily life to what this content is or is not relevant to you, right? So that way we're tweaking around the technology and centering on the humans, on the students themselves.
I completely agree. And I'm going to just add in my 2 cents too. I am a math teacher, and my math teachers and my world language teachers, we have been dealing with this problem. I don't want to call it a problem, maybe that's the wrong word, with this issue for a very long time, right? We have so many apps that can do all the math for us and show them all the work, and then we don't know if the student did the work or if it was just generated. Same thing with translating options. And so now the rest of the teaching world is going through, the kind of growing pains that I feel like a lot of us needed to go through too. And so, yeah, different types of assignments and different types of situations and different kind of assessment tools have to be then created to make sure that we are, like I'm looking in the chat, kind of overseeing any kind of like plagiarism issues or using it for this purpose or citing examples, things like that. Or when you see something in AI that there's no way, this looks suspicious to my spidey senses, or I see someone solve something with math in a way that I've never taught before, then your senses go off and you know that there's something else going on there and you can have that conversation. Next question asked by Alyssa S from Louisiana. What is the best way to teach students responsible and honest use of AI tools? So this question leads right into what we were just having a conversation of. How can schools shape policy to make sure students refrain from using AI for cheating and plagiarism? Deana, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so to kind of answer the first part of that question, I think as a teacher, we know that when it comes to teaching students anything, modeling is a really good, road to take. I know, especially if you're a math teacher, et cetera, but sometimes when it comes to something new, we may not always have the tools, right, to be able to model and actually teach students, honest use of these things, right? So what I like to say is get somebody else to do it, right? If you know that there's an expert, maybe your librarian is really good with AI and the new changes and things like that, have someone else, teach your students the how-tos, because we may not always know, how to do something. And so I even reverted to that plenty of times this school year, where students were like, well, Ms. Forbes, how do I do this? And how do I do that? I'm like, listen, I don't know, but I'm gonna find somebody that can, and they're gonna help you. And then also, thinking about shaping policy, right? As far as shaping policy, I think that it's important that those who are in positions to shape the policies, right, who are on the school boards, who are administrators and things like that, to really listen specifically to educators, to teachers, what the challenges are that we're going to be facing in the classroom, right, with our students. And just really giving students and teachers both a place in how those policies are shaped, laying out, what's acceptable, what's not tolerated, right? What are the consequences, but maybe also having some restorative pieces in there as well, and opportunities to educate everybody on, what honest use of AI looks like, and what will be tolerated and not tolerated as far as plagiarism and cheating and things like that.
Sadia, how about you?
Yeah, I really liked what people were saying in the chat about encouraging students to use their own voice and taking pride in that. I think that's one really important way we can help students stay away from AI in general, as in terms of cheating. I also think, as was already said, allowing them opportunities to use it in class or for certain assignments in different ways, where we're teaching them, if you generate an AI answer for this, but then you critique it and add your own thoughts and opinions onto it, that's acceptable as long as it's cited. Allowing them to do that is going to teach them some ways to use it. just like specifically at my school, we are a 6 through 12 campus, so a middle and high school, and this policy is the same for all grades. Any type of cheating, and we've included AI in that in our language and all our documents now, they will automatically get a 0 on the assignment. They'll have to come and do a reflection with the dean. So that's kind of the restorative piece there, where we have them talk about and write about why they made that decision, what was kind of going on in their mind. And then we also talk about the consequences. Me being the senior dean that works with seniors, we document every instance of cheating as a major or a minor case for 6 through 12. And then we really start looking at those when they start accruing those in high school. And eventually, you know, we do have an ethical responsibility to tell colleges when we're recommending our students to apply. So that's kind of like the scary thing that we have is that, you know, hey, like if you continue to have these major cheating infractions or major use of AI, like our school counselor can't recommend you without reservation. She has to like disclose that to colleges. And that does, our focus is like very like a college prep school. And so that does make a big impact. We also always notify the parents and bring parents into those conversations as well, which I think is really, really important. And then I do think the mental health piece really plays into it, because students who are consistently resorting to something like AI or cheating in any form, like clearly do not have the confidence in their own abilities or the time or the tools to ask for help. And so we always, you know, talk about what could you have done instead, because now you have a 0 on the assignment, you can make it up and get a 50% maybe, and you didn't do the learning. So what can we do? And so I think it really has to be a holistic approach with a lot of people involved when we talk about policy.
All right, next question from Orkan A from Hungary. How do you see the balance between traditional in-person education and remote online learning evolving in the next decade? So, you know, right now we have our in-person classes. We have a lot of colleges that have geared so many classes towards online learning, like you can get your full degree, you can even get your, you know, K through 12 degree completely online, and or have a mix of like a hybrid experience at this point. So how do we see the balance? What do we think about the balance over the next, you know, few years, a decade, as far as with what's happening right now? Tatum, what do you think?
Yeah, this is such an interesting question. I even ended up having a great conversation with my husband about this, because we were like, man, you know, as things have evolved just in the last couple of years, like you can learn so many things online. It's so brilliant. And then you can just be sitting in front of your computer for way too long. Like we'll constantly come away, you know, after setting our speed, you know, for the class on 1.5x, you know, and sitting there listening for like a solid 2 hours to whatever we are trying to learn for us. And we're like, my brain is smoking. So I think there's just going to be a lot of focus on individual balance, you know, because that's going to be different for everybody too. Like what's totally fine for me could be way too much or like not even a problem for somebody else. And yeah, just finding that balance. And like, I think Gabriela, you said it nicely, like bringing the human experience back in, you know, like I find myself like really craving in-person experiences again. And I'm starting to really honor that, even though I see it now as this huge inconvenience, right? Where I'm like, oh man, I gotta like, you know, work out babysitting and transportation to get to that place that's like not right here at my desk. It's convenience has taken on a whole new life of its own in terms of the deterrence to that. But just everybody really paying attention to that. I have no idea what it's going to look like. But again, I wonder if there's a trend going on of that like craving of human experience again. Like I really miss people. So if I had to guess, I would bet other people are feeling the same, and that we will all start reaching out to each other and being like, let's get in a room again.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. Gabriela, what are your thoughts?
Completely agree. And you may say I'm a dreamer, but I don't see in-person learning being fully replaced by remote learning. mostly because, in my opinion, learning, in my opinion, and as the current of social cultural learning theories mentioned, learning is a social and cultural matter. It happens through relationships, relationships between the learner and the expert, relationships between the learners who are sharing that experience, between the learner and the topic that's being learned. And I believe that in-person experiences, they play a major role in that, and they will continue to play this major role, even if we all dive into the matrix, because I believe that's what connects us to our essence as humans. That said, I do see a lot of institutions migrating a part of their program to remote learning, mostly when it comes to individual experiences, so engaging with new content through a lecture, through a podcast, through a series of activities. And I understand that this is a trend, as Tatum mentioned, and can see that expanding mostly by convenience matters. But I do believe that it's important to highlight that for that to be effective, we need to learn how to self-regulate ourselves. That said, understanding what is our goal, how we're gonna monitor our progress, how we are gonna, understand if it's happening or not, what we wanna get out of the experience, which is something quite hard to do, mostly right now in a world full of information, full of experiences that we can choose to engage with or not. So I see it as a trend, but I do see it as something that would require some other sorts of abilities that right now we don't have that much, right? It is hard to sit down and to engage individually with a certain content for a large amount of time.
Yeah. We have time for one more question. So this last question that we're going to go through is from Mariah S. from Arkansas. How do we best ready our students for the future workforce through elevating their soft skills and confidence and teaching them to communicate effectively? So it's a good question, right? We're trying to put these kids out into the world and, make sure that they're ready. Deana, what are your thoughts on that?
So I absolutely love this question. I think it's one of my favorite ones. This is something that I think about every year with my students. I always think, what can I do in my interaction with them, in the way that I teach them, to help elevate their soft skills and prepare them for the workforce? For me, I think one of the biggest things that we can help students with is people skills, right? The first thing that comes to mind for me is those emails that they send, right? Last year, I spent time saying, okay, guys, listen, it's the email world. We're going to sit here and we're going to learn how to send a proper email. We're going to learn, when you walk into a room, right? How do you carry yourself? You speak, right? How do you interact with people? And like we always say, relationships are at the core of everything. Well, those people skills are going to be so important for them going into the workforce. You know what I'm saying? If you're, no matter where you're working, are you greeting your customer? Are you making them feel welcome? Do you feel like striking up a conversation? Because if so, this is how you do that, right? And so I think there's a lot of things we do, where we can take the time to sit and actually teach them those skills. I have my students research and present a lot, even though I know some of them are like, Miss Forbes, I don't want to present. I'm like, okay, we're going to get through this, because you may be the next CEO of a company, honey, and you may need to get up there and present your idea to a room full of people, right? And so I kind of blend teaching them the people skills with boosting their confidence and speaking in a way that even if they can't see themselves being somewhere, I can see them being somewhere, and really just using those positive affirmations with whatever it is that we're doing to let these students know, you are the future. You guys are brilliant. You're smart. You have access to so many things now. All of this new technology. I'm a 90s baby, okay? Because I was around when we had the pagers, and you know what I'm saying? We had the CD player where you had to hold it, and if you jumped a little too hard, the CD was skipping. And so I always, tell them, you guys are in a position where you have access to so many things, and you can go so many places. And so that's one of my favorite questions, because it really is a question that gets at the core of what we all do, and that's build relationships with these students and encourage them that they really can be and do anything that they want to do, especially in this age of technology.
Thank you. I completely agree. Gabriela.
I could listen to Deana talking all day long. I love your experiences. So thanks for sharing everything. Adding to what you said, I always love to use project-based learning to foster competencies such as communication, collaboration, critical thinking, global citizenship. I believe it is a great approach for that. So in my work, that usually means helping students form groups or work individually, and then engage with content and methods and create an artifact that represents what they learned. And usually I always ask for them to present, as Deana was saying, this artifact to the class. And the trick here is not only to evaluate content knowledge, but also the competencies, right? You evaluate the collaboration effort, you evaluate the communication skill. And what I like to use for that is a rubric that I show to learners since day one. So they understand the path to collaboration. So they understand how can they showcase their communication skills when the time comes, right? Because I feel like sometimes we're asking for students to do stuff and not giving them the appropriate scaffold. So rubrics usually help a lot with that. And also, one of the methods that I love to use to engage with soft skills is visible learning. So as one of my mentors always says, experience fosters learning, but reflecting about experience is the real deal. So having students reflecting about what they have learned, evaluating how they have collaborated or not during the group activity, assessing themselves on, their critical thinking, how their thinking patterns have evolved since they started working on the project. So certain kinds of activities that can help us to intentionally develop the skills, they're so important nowadays.
Thank you. And Sadia, closing thoughts here.
Yeah, I won't repeat what, Gabriela and Deana said, because they said a lot of what I would say. But I do think another piece, and one that we do at my school that I've seen really help, is getting kids out there in internships and outside of school opportunities where they're having a real chance to apply these skills. I have seen students who will act a complete fool in the hallways in the classroom be the most professional, respectful, capable individuals when they're just given the opportunity and a new environment to do so and show off those skills. So just really giving them chances to try this, and with presenting in class, working in groups where they don't get to choose their partners, so they have to work with people they may not feel comfortable with, all of those things. Yes.